Good morning. This is Kevin Shea. I'm a candidate for the Minnesota State Senate. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. This is our first ever Facebook Live, and we call it Kevin's Corner, our virtual town hall. So again, thanks a lot for joining us. Today I'm going to be assisted on the technical side with my daughters, Kelsey and Megan. So if anything goes wrong, it's their fault. No, that's a joke. But they are going to be giving questions. They don't want to be on camera because I think they're still in their pajamas. But in any case, feel free to give us questions, and I'll try to answer those questions. If in fact we can't get to those questions, feel free to contact us through our website, and that's sheamnsenate.com, sheamnsenate.com, or you can email me directly, and that is kevinsheamnsenate@gmail.com. So again, thanks a lot for joining us. Excuse me. I'll probably start off with now the online voting. I know I've talked to a number of people about the online voting, and we're supposed to have our endorsing convention today, but obviously because of the coronavirus, we are unable to do so. And so the Senate District and the St. Paul DFL pivoted to an online voting. And let me just briefly go over that. Number one is that everyone is going to get an email ballot. So if you haven't done so, please contact the Senate DFL, Lawrence and Sandy Sandoval, who are doing a fabulous job, a lot of hours work and so forth. Send them your email address so they can send you your electronic ballot. If you do not have email or internet, or you share a common email address, you can also do it via U.S. mail. Obviously, they would prefer to do it just via the email, but if in lieu of that, you can do it through U.S. mail. The balloting period will be a 10-day window, and it'll run from April 24th through, I believe, May 3rd. So during that period of time, you can complete your ballot and submit it. And then it will all be administered and tabulated by the St. Paul DFL, and hopefully you get the results shortly after the balloting ends. If you do have any questions about that, again, feel free to contact us at our website or our email address. We'd be happy to fill you in on those things. Or you can obviously get on the Senate District 56 website and submit a question there as well. So thanks so much. So I'm looking for, well, there's Jamie entered. Well, hi, Jamie. Nice to hear from you. And I don't know if we have any questions coming up here, but we have a question. This is from Bob Mokas. Hi, Bob. And Bob asked, how is a gun store an essential business for purposes of the shelter in place? And that is a very good question. I'm not sure how a gun store becomes an essential business. And I'm not sure who promulgated that. However, let me just talk a little bit about gun control and reasonable gun limitations. As you know, there have been a number of bills that have been hung up in the Minnesota Senate, which is controlled by the Republican majority, namely the red flag laws and the universal background checks. And this is another great reason why we need to turn District 56 from red to blue so we can get this reasonable gun restrictions passed through the Senate and the House and signed by Governor Walz. Both the House and Governor Walz support these. So thanks, Bob, for that question. Pam McSweeney's on. Hi, Pam. How you doing? So a couple other things that I want to address. Once in a while, people ask me, why did you get into this race? And I have two main reasons for that. Number one, I've always considered Minnesota a leader in so many different areas: education, environment, diversity, education, so many different areas. And I see certain elements in our society and in our state that want us to go backwards. And I think we need to be leaders like we always have been, through Hubert Humphrey, Paul Wellstone, now Amy Klobuchar, being leaders, and of course Governor Walz, being leaders in all these different areas. And that's why our motto is, together, let's keep Minnesota moving forward. So the other reason is that my family and I have lived out in Burnsville in the district for over 35 years. And so this is home for us. And of course, during those 35 years, we've seen a lot of changes to the district, and a lot of diversity in the district. And we really embrace that. However, I don't know, what we've tried to do is invite a lot of folks into the process. We are really proud. We worked very, very diligently before the caucuses, made over 2,000 telephone calls. We brought in more than 80 participants to the caucus, and we're reaching out to other communities in the district: the Somali community, the Latino community, the Cambodian community, and the African American community, amongst others. And our goal is to grow our party out here so that this district becomes a DFL stronghold, and it accurately reflects the diversity that we enjoy in District 56. So let's see. Oh, so we have Jan Jurek on here. Well, thanks, Jan, for joining us. And Cindy Banovitz, that's nice. Lori Struckman, thanks for joining us today. So a couple other questions. Let's see. Somebody wanted me to talk about my background. Well, I'm born and raised Minnesotan. Yeah, sure, you betcha. And see, Sky Yuma. And born and raised in Owatonna, Minnesota. Graduated from Owatonna High School, and I went to college at University of St. Thomas. And then I went to law school at William Mitchell Law School. And during that period of time, I often tell people that I grew up in a beer truck because my dad was in the beer business. And we used to unload cases of beer one by one. As soon as we could lift a case of beer, we went to work there. And all during college and high school, college, and law school, I was working. I worked at all sorts of different jobs. I, of course, worked in our warehouse, and I drove a beer truck once in a while, and also drove a school bus when I was in college. And I was a youth leader. Also, I was a bookkeeper, worked for an accountant, and also an English tutor. And that was the best job because that's where I met my wife, who's been my wife for, gosh, honey, I forgot how long we've been married. No, 35 years. I'm joking. And that was why I was at St. Thomas. And we raised our 5 children out here. And so that's a little bit about my background. I don't want to bore you about the rest of the stuff. So I've got a question here about the healthcare. And of course, that's a big issue. And as Angie Craig says, it's not so much about premiums anymore. It's about the cost of healthcare, and that has to do with the deductibles and copays, and also prescription drugs. And the House of Representatives and Governor Walz has made some proposals about lowering those costs, and that's all been stifled in the Minnesota Senate as well. And probably the best example of that is this whole debacle about the insulin legislation that the Republican Senate held up for about a year and a half. That needs to change, and we need to bring those costs down. And that is obviously a number one priority for everyone in the DFL party. Let's see, how are we doing with other questions? Okay.
What makes you stand out from other candidates?
Oh yeah. Well, so one thing.
Stand out from other candidates?
Okay. Yeah. So somebody was asking about what makes me stand out. Well, again, I alluded to it earlier. A few things. First of all, I've lived in the district for 35 years, so I know the district. I know the changes that have happened with the district. I'm an attorney. I've run my own small business for 34 years. So I understand the trials and tribulations of small business owners. Also understand the law, the rules, the regulations, and I know how to negotiate things. I know how to handle budgets. And then from our campaign standpoint, we really embrace the diversity that we have in our community. And we would love to invite those folks in. And we've done so even early, 3 months into our campaign. We have a lot of support from a lot of different communities in District 56. And that's really one of the themes that we have, because as Governor Walz says, we're one Minnesota, and that goes for LGBTQ community, that goes for people of color, and we're just inviting a big tent into the DFL. Let's see. Okay, we have a question from Jean about public education. Obviously, I'm a product of the Minnesota or the Owatonna Public Schools, and big supporter of education. Unfortunately, education has been underfunded, and what I hear in talking to some of teachers and other educators throughout the district is they're really stretched thin on actually educating the students. There's a number of unfunded mandates from the federal government that they do not get funding for, but yet they're compelled to implement those. And that takes away from other things that they have to do. So that has really been a pinch. And of course, I want to have a shout out to all of our educators who are doing incredible work here, pivoting to an online education system. In addition to that, taking care of all of the needs of their students, nutritional needs and other needs during this very difficult time of the coronavirus. Thanks, Jean, for being a teacher, and thanks for all those teachers out there doing a great job for us. Let's see, what else do we have here?
I have a question from the crowd.
Okay.
What are the most important issues facing your district?
Well, we've alluded to some of those, education and healthcare, but two others that really I hear quite a bit about. And number one is climate change. And as a Minnesotan, I think you're born being an environmentalist. And one of the greatest threats to our environment is climate change. And of course, that's been going on for a number of years. And there's still people in our world that deny that climate change is real. But of course, it's real. And Governor Walz, and it's a global issue. However, there are some things on the state level that we can do to mitigate the effects of greenhouse gases. Governor Walz proposed a 2050 initiative, which would make Minnesota carbon-free by 2050. Personally, I like to speed that up to 2040 because the acceleration of climate change is only getting greater and greater. Things we thought 10 years ago are accelerating at a very rapid pace, so we need to do likewise. In any event, that 2050 initiative, like so many things, has been stifled in the Republican-led Minnesota Senate. Another good reason we need to have a DFLer in Senate District 56. But the initiative also will move us away from carbon fuels, greenhouse gases, into more green society by eliminating coal-fired power plants, by shifting more to renewable energy sources like solar and wind energy, and also storing that wind and solar. Now, there's actually an overcapacity of those two energy sources, and there's been a lot of work done to have storage of those greenhouse gases and in various ways. Also, mitigation, working with our farmers. There's a lot of carbon emissions from agricultural land. We can do some things to mitigate that. And obviously, the most difficult one is the auto emissions and other fossil fuels that are burned through our internal combustion engines. So this initiative was brought forth, and by no means is it an end project. We need to keep improving on that. But that certainly will be the top agenda for me. The second one that I hear about is housing. And that one, unfortunately, doesn't get a lot of attention, but I hear it more and more, especially in our Somali community. They have a lot of housing issues as far as some of their families aren't able to find housing to facilitate a larger family. And at times they've been split up. And I've been talking with some officials around the district as some creative ways to address that issue in housing and accommodating families, especially for rental units. So that is a major issue that I hope to hit the ground with my feet running on that issue. Kelly has another great teacher, and says, what ideas do you have to combat the continued rise in homeless in Dakota County and Minnesota? That's a great question. Again, that's one of the homeless issue doesn't get a lot of attention. And I've attended several meetings regarding homelessness. And one of the meetings really had some very profound messages. One was the pivoting from, years ago, 25, 30 years ago, they thought homelessness started with the person, that they needed to get the person cleaned up before they found a home for them. And what we've learned over those years is actually the home is the foundation for everything else. And once a person has a home, they have stability, they have the ability to get employment, they have the ability to get their life organized. And so that's really the foundation. And one of the main things that's really fairly simple is more affordable housing for people. It is as complex as simple as that. One example that was given is for our veterans, that in Minnesota at least, the veterans homelessness has been virtually solved. At the meeting I was about 6-7 weeks ago, they had identified, I think it was 156 homeless veterans. And they knew them by name. They knew all about themselves, all about those homeless veterans. But they said the reason that happened is there was a bipartisan effort to address homelessness for our vets. Now, if we could bring that nonpartisan spirit to homelessness in general in District 56 and throughout Minnesota, we'll take one step closer to solving that problem of homelessness. Now, those might not be the only solutions, but those are certainly a good step towards that problem. I have a question about lack of mental health from schools and acute care plans. The mental health obviously had to do with the recent strike at the St. Paul schools. And excuse me, that was one of the cornerstones because mental health issues are becoming a greater and greater impact in our schools. And another one of those things that our teachers are confronted with in their daily lives, which is quite a bit different than years ago. And so that's so important that we bring mental health issues to our schools. And that's, again, one of those issues that is underfunded. There's a mandate and there's not funding for the mental health issues in the schools. That is a critical issue. I think there's some statistics out there that would point to an increase, a dramatic increase in the suicide rate amongst adolescents. And that obviously is a stark reminder that mental health issues cannot be ignored.
Okay, you have another question. What is your position on parental leave?
Excuse me. Yeah, parental leave, another really important issue, another issue that's been stifled in the Republican-led Minnesota Senate. So the United States is one of the few countries, developed countries in the world, that doesn't have some form of paid worker leave, parental leave. And Minnesota is not part of that group either. There's 8 states in the District of Columbia that have some form of paid worker leave. And again, this is one of those areas that I think Minnesota should be a leader on. Somebody who has a full-time job should not be in fear of losing their job in order to take care of a loved one. And that can take many different forms. And I think that that is something that's imperative. And that's something I know our retiring representative, Dr. Elise Mann, has championed. And again, that was never passed in the Senate. And that was another one of those, when we flip the Senate to blue, will be at the top of the agenda. Okay. Well, there's my Shea from down south. Yeah, she says, do you have any political heroes in Minnesota or nationally? Well, of course, Hubert Humphrey when I was growing up, and Paul Wellstone later on. 2 great champions for the progressive movement in Minnesota. And look at all the changes that were implemented by those 2 individuals that we just take as commonplace today, particularly Senator Wellstone and mental health issues, the one we just touched on. He was a champion for that. That one didn't get a lot of attention before Senator Wellstone was in the Senate, and he was a real advocate for mental health issues. And today, there is a great emphasis on that. Obviously, Amy Klobuchar is another great leader we have coming forward. But my hero, actually, in my youth, was Bobby Kennedy, and how things may have changed if he wasn't so tragically assassinated in 1968. And the reason he's my hero is because he got in and went right to the people. He met with Cesar Chavez in California to help with the farm workers, and he actually went into the fields with the farm workers. He went to Appalachia and went in the coal mines with the coal miners. He went into African American communities when that wasn't so popular. And he did a lot of other things. He took on organized crime, and so he's someone that I really admire, simply because he was really hands-on with things. And again, take some inspiration from him, and as well as Hubert Humphrey, Paul Wellstone, and a number of others. And my brother, of course, my brother Tom, who was in the Minnesota House from Owatonna years ago. Thanks, Shelley. So I want to take a few minutes here, because we're getting a little bit towards our end, to talk about a couple things. First of all, we have some more of these coming up. And we have, again, we're calling them virtual town hall meetings. Thanks a lot for joining us. But the next one is going to be on April 7th. And that's a Tuesday, and it'll be in the evening at 7 p.m. So I'll hopefully we'll have the same format, and you'll be able to join us then. And then our third one is going to be on April 18th. That's a Saturday again, and that'll be at 10 a.m. And hopefully you'll be able to participate in that one as well. As always, if you aren't able to participate in those, feel free to give us a message through our website. That's SheaMNSenate.com, or email me directly, kevinsheamnsenate@gmail.com. So those are a couple of other things that are coming up. Also, check out our website, because we've been posting a number of videos there on various issues that we are confronted with, that we hear as we're making our phone calls and meeting people in the virtual reality now. So check out those web or videos that we're posting on our website. Let's see, we might have time for maybe a couple more questions. What does it look like out there? This is one of those awkward moments, you're trying to fill time. So maybe I'll go into song and dance. Oh, no, you don't want that.
Yeah. Teresa asked about leaders who would protect the LGBTQ plus adolescents, especially in our society, considering they have some of the highest rates of suicide.
Yeah, Teresa, thanks for that question. Again, this is an issue that is just about human dignity and humanity. I have a gay brother, and I also have a niece who married the woman of her dreams a couple years ago. And those are two individuals that certainly have taught me a lot, and taught so many of us with the folks about this particular issue and the need to make sure that LGBTQ rights are protected. And obviously they are protected by our Minnesota laws and discrimination. But even more than that, it's not just the discrimination. We need to call out discrimination when we see it. And that's the only way we're going to get rid of that. And that goes through our schools and in our workplaces and elsewhere. Well, it looks like the appointed hour has come. Again, thank you so much. Really happy with all the questions and all the participation. And if you didn't get in today, again, you can send us a question through our website. And then if you like, we could join us in those other two events that I mentioned. Those are also posted on our website. But other than that, again, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, together, let's keep Minnesota moving forward.